For decades, people only heard one side of the story. The headlines were always about the wild nights, the chaos, and the madness that surrounded Ozzy Osbourne. But behind the curtain, behind the glitter of fame and the noise of heavy metal, there was another story. And this story belonged to Randy Rhoads' sister, who stayed quiet all these years. Until now. She carried her brother's memory like a fragile glass, afraid the world would never understand him as she did. Randy wasn't just the guitar hero who redefined Ozzy's music. He was her brother, a gentle soul who loved his craft, his family, and his quiet moments. But living in the shadow of one of rock's most chaotic figures meant that Randy's truth was buried under the myths. And tonight, she decided it was time to speak. Her words cut through the silence like the first strike of a guitar string. She said, "Everyone remembers the parties, but not everyone remembers Randy." And just like that, a story long kept in the dark began to unfold. The rise of Randy. Before the madness of Ozzy's world touched his life, Randy was a boy with a guitar bigger than his arms. He grew up in a small house filled with music. His mother was a music teacher, and their home carried the sound of scales, practice, and dedication. Randy practiced until his fingers hurt, chasing not fame but perfection. His sister remembered the nights when he would sit by the window, lost in melodies no one else could hear. When Ozzy's life hit a breaking point after leaving Black Sabbath, he was searching for something, or someone, to save him. That someone was Randy. Their first meeting wasn't about money or fame. It was about connection. Ozzy knew instantly that Randy was different. His guitar didn't scream. It spoke. His riffs weren't just heavy. They were alive. And so began a partnership that would change rock history. But in Randy's sister's eyes, it was also the moment her brother stepped into a world he was never meant to survive. Life on the edge. Ozzy's tours were not like anyone else's. The nights blurred into mornings, the parties never seemed to end, and the line between music and madness grew thinner with every drink, every pill, and every dare. Randy, quiet and disciplined, was thrown into an environment that clashed with who he was. He never fit the mold of the wild rocker, and yet he was now surrounded by it every single day. His sister recalled phone calls that made her uneasy. He would laugh about the craziness, but behind his voice was something else. A weight, a sense that he was playing a role he didn't want. He was loyal to Ozzy, loyal to the band, but his heart longed for something purer. He talked often of leaving, of going back to school, of teaching guitar instead of touring the world. But the world wasn't ready to let Randy go. His talent was too bright, and the machine of rock and roll was too powerful. As his sister tells it, she could feel the storm building, and deep inside, Randy could too. The party and the pain. Ozzy's party life was legendary. The wild stunts, the arrests, the scandals, fans couldn't get enough of it. But for those close to Randy, those parties were more like a cage. He would show up because it was expected, but he was never truly there. His sister remembers hearing stories of him sitting in corners, quietly strumming a guitar, while the chaos exploded around him. He once told her, "I don't belong here." But belonging wasn't the question. The band needed him, Ozzy needed him, and the fans adored him. So he stayed, even when every part of his soul told him to walk away. The parties weren't just fun, they were dangerous. People were reckless. The lines between friendship and destruction blurred. And in the middle of it all, Randy became the quiet witness to Ozzy's unraveling. His sister, even years later, couldn't shake the fear that her brother's light was dimmed by someone else's darkness. The final flight. The day Randy died still feels unreal to his sister. It wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to be on that plane. It was meant to be a prank, another reckless thrill in a world that fed on danger. But it ended in tragedy. The crash silenced one of the brightest talents in rock history, and it left a family shattered. His sister remembers the phone call, the numbness, the disbelief. She remembers walking past his empty room, still filled with guitars and notebooks. And she remembers the silence, how the world moved on, chasing the next headline about Ozzy, while Randy became just another tragic rock story. But to her, he was never just a story. He was her brother, and his silence was hers too. The legacy lives on. When she finally chose to speak, it wasn't to bring down Ozzy or to rewrite history. It was to remind the world that behind the chaos was a man who deserved to be remembered for his music, his heart, and his discipline. Randy Rhoads wasn't about parties. He was about passion. He wasn't about destruction. He was about creation. His sister's voice carries the weight of years of silence, but also the strength of love that refuses to fade. She wants fans to know that Randy dreamed of more than fame. He dreamed of teaching, of inspiring, of creating music that lived beyond him. And in a way, he did. Every riff, every song, every fan who still speaks his name keeps that dream alive. Her story is not about the madness of Ozzy. It's about the light of Randy, the truth that remains. In the end, the story is simple but powerful. Randy Rhoads was a legend not because of how he died, but because of how he lived. His sister's silence is broken, and with it, the myths fall away. What remains is the truth. A quiet boy with a guitar, a gentle soul in a loud world, a brother who left too soon but gave enough to never be forgotten. And as her words echo, the story comes full circle. It is not about Ozzy's parties or rock and roll chaos. It is about the bond of family, the cost of fame, and the eternal power of music. Her voice fades, but the message stays. Remember Randy, not for the madness around him, but for the music within him.